Morning guys. This week California has been getting some incredibly large tides. These tides are called king tides, and that's a non-scientific term, but this is what happens when we get some of the largest tides we get throughout the year. Technically it's a perigean spring tide. Let's talk about what a tide is. It's not just a wave. A tide is a wave caused by the gravitational pull of the moon. The moon orbits the Earth, and as it goes around the Earth, it pulls on the water that's on the Earth. All of the ocean water is less dense than the soil, so it pulls away from the Earth. I can demonstrate this with a bit of netting. So if I have the moon, and the moon is out here and it's pulling on the water on the Earth, you can see the Earth's water is going to pull away a bit in the direction of the moon. You guys see that? Other spots on the planet are going to have low tide during the time that that moon pull is pulling. This bulge can be even higher when the sun and the moon line up. So if you have a situation where the Earth is here and the moon is here and the sun is over there, then the sun's gravitational pull and the moon's gravitational pull are both lining up to cause an extra large tide on that side of the Earth. One thing you need to know about gravity is that the further away you are, the weaker it is. The closer you get, the more the gravity pulls on you. Most of our tide is controlled by the pull of the moon because it is so much closer to us than the sun, but the sun's gravitational pull does have some effect. Also, as the moon is orbiting the Earth, the moon is actually orbiting the Earth not in a perfect circle, but in an elliptical orbit, which means sometimes it's further away and sometimes it's closer. When it's further away, we call that apogee, like starting with an A, like it's away from you. Apogee is when the moon is further away from the Earth. Perigee is when the moon is closer to the Earth. So over the course of its travel, as it's traveling around the Earth, sometimes it's further away, sometimes it's closer. When it's closer, it is going to have a greater gravitational pull, and that's going to tug on the Earth. But when we see the tides, that's where we see it pulling on the water, the ocean. There are three factors relating to tides. You have the moon's gravity, the sun's gravity, and the distance of the moon to the Earth. All of these affect the tides. They don't always line up in a perfect row. So sometimes you have the moon pulling in one direction and the sun pulling in another direction. That just makes the high tides a little bit lower. One more detail. When the moon pulls on the ocean, a strange thing happens. Of course, you've got the water that's on the moon side is pulling a little bit further out. We talked about that. But what you don't realize is that the water that's on the opposite side of the planet is pushing out also. Why is that? Well, part of it is because of the moon on this side is pulling the water on this side, and that gives it a little bit of tug this direction. But as you go further back, the moon's pulling on the Earth a little bit, and it's holding on to it. The Earth and the moon are doing a little tug of war. But the water on this side of the Earth is not as close to the water on this side of the Earth, so it sticks out. It's kind of like you're losing your grip on something. It's flying out in that direction as it's being pulled around. So you end up with this football-shaped tide. Wherever there's a high tide on this side of the Earth, there's also a high tide on this side. So right now, let's talk about what happened. 2 days ago, we had a new moon. That is when the moon is lined up between the Earth and the sun. So if you can see, the dark side of the moon is facing the Earth, and so we have, if you look up at the sky during a new moon, you'll see just a dark circle. Well, we're coming a little bit out of that, but that was where you have the sun and the moon lined up for the greatest gravitational pull. Add to that, we were at perigee, which means they were closer to the Earth, so you had extra gravitational pull, and that's what caused the king tides in California this week. Check out these links. Have a great day, guys.